fruit of generosity visible here and now. The Pali word is Sandittika Dana Pala, right? The fruits of generosity here and now. So we'll talk about generosity anyway, because though the talk is about the fruits, but let us talk about generosity also. Generosity is the act or the practice of giving. It occupies a very central role or important role in Buddhism. We find it in perfections, one of the 10 perfections or paramis. We find it in teachings like the trio, dana, which is generosity, then sila, which is ethical conduct, and then bhavana, mental development. We find it in the teachings of the Buddha, which is called Buddharakkhita, which means the way how the Buddha taught. Every time he would meet people who are not Buddhists, and for the first time he would not teach them the Four Noble Truths. He would teach them about generosity. Only when they become very interested, and also some of them become Buddhists, then he will teach deeper, the teachings like Four Noble Truths and other teachings. Then we find it in the Noble Eightfold Path, but it takes a bit of some kind of reflection to find out where it's located in the Noble Eightfold Path. Because it's not specifically mentioned there, but you can say it's part of what? Should be part of what? Part of right thoughts. Thoughts of non-greed. What's the opposite of non-greed? Is generosity. So some people think that it's not mentioned in the central teaching of the Buddha. It's actually mentioned. Generosity is practiced in every tradition. African tradition, different religions, Christian, Islam. We have actually people in Uganda who are Muslim. During Ramadan, they donated 18 bags of rice to the temple. It was amazing for me to see that sign of generosity. But of course, these are the people who are doing my workshops of mindfulness and African wisdom. So this teaching is very universal. But there's a myth that is going around the world saying that every teaching is the same. You know, have you heard this same thing? Oh, generosity is the same in Buddhism. It's the same in Christianity. It's the same in other tradition. I would say same, but different. Actually, when you look at it, all religions, spiritual tradition practice generosity, but Buddhist practice of generosity is different from others. Generosity is practiced as a standalone practice in other traditions, but in Buddhism is not standalone. We practice generosity for the basis and support of practicing ethical conduct, of practicing concentration, of practicing mental development, bhavana. It's not isolated. We cannot isolate it. So when you practice generosity and give maybe something to my friend here like this, that's not the end of it. We have to reflect on it. We call it dana anusati. Dana means generosity, anu means along, and then sati means mindfulness. So mindfulness along with your generosity. So it becomes a practice itself, a meditation practice, not just giving things and yes, oh yeah, I'm a good Buddhist. I have practiced generosity. No, for us, it has to go beyond that. In fact, before giving, we have to be mindful. During giving, we have to give with respect, with mindfulness. And after giving, we have to contemplate. contemplation. This is very, very important. So then this becomes the foundation for gaining concentration. It becomes the foundation for gaining wisdom. So in other tradition, it's isolated. It's not practiced as a basis and support for gaining concentration, as a basis and support for gaining wisdom. No, it's just practiced. I remember my grandmother used to harvest crops and the beans. She would ask me, please take these beans to our neighbor. I would take them. And she received a lot of thanks. So that's it. That was the end of the deal. But for us in Buddhism, whether you donate to a monastery, whatever you donate, we use it as a basis and support for further training, like sila, ethical conduct, like samadhi, concentration, like panya, wisdom. So it's actually very, very important to remember this fact. Otherwise, we'll miss what the Buddha intended for this teaching of generosity. There is yet another myth that when you give, you actually stay in samsara. That means the round of birth and death. Because giving creates a lot of merits, and merits keeps you going around the circle of birth and death. That's not true, actually. When you practice generosity, and when you couple it with understanding and wisdom, and you really practice it with mindfulness, you should be able to accelerate your path to liberation, to nibbana. So most people are afraid of giving, thinking that they are going to stay a long time in samsara. So that's a myth. So they hold back their generosity. They say, I'm not going to give anything. Yes. So that's another misconception. It's a myth. But actually the truth is that giving is a foundation for the path to enlightenment, and we should practice it all the way. And actually when you look at the deeper understanding of generosity, it's about letting go. It's about letting go of our attachment. Letting go of our attachment, attachment to things, to people. So really a deeper meaning of letting go is letting go the mental states. Being generous and let go of greed, hatred, and delusion. So this is very, very important. It's not only giving material things. So now we go to the question, what should we give? What should we give? I remember when I was in the United States, going for arms round in a Vietnamese mall. So people were giving me food, and I found these school children. They had no food to give me. So they asked each other, what can we give these monks? One of them came, you guys, you go around looking for food? We are talking about West Virginia. We are talking about that part of the United States, which is also conservative. So the children were so amazed. They were barefooted, They say, what are you doing? They were going to school anyway. And then they went back and discussed with each other. They said, let us give them pens. So they brought their pen and put it in my alms bowl. But alms bowl had food. I'll never forget that sign of generosity, actually. So they gave pens. Huh? Yeah, but these are the things to give. We give material things. We give food, of course, the four requisites. Food, shelter. We give clothes, lodging. These are the common things we give, but of course we can give beyond that. But that's not the only thing we can give. We can give our time. We can give energy. We can give, where are the young ones? Do you have a young one? Because always I ask young one, you don't have money and material things, what should you give? There's no young one now. Yeah. Okay, young one, they should give energy. They have lots of energy. They can volunteer and then help their parents. Because this is a question I asked the young one, okay, you don't have money. What are you going to give? They say, well, I give love to my father. But I found out actually because of the technology now, children spend more time on Facebook facing everybody except the people in the house. So now, if we advise our young ones, they can actually give time, they can give attention, because now they are no longer giving us attention. The attention is on Google, phone, all these kind of things. So we can actually package our things that we give in a modern life. We can give material things, we can give time to others, we can give energy, we can give respect, we can give attention. And we monks, we don't have material things to give, but we give God. One wonders how a monk gives God. Can you imagine? We don't have a God. How monks give God? Actually, it's an acronym. And I found this acronym at BF. Gift of Dharma. Gift of Dharma. Right? So now, when I'm giving a talk like this, I'm giving a gift of Dharma. And in fact, that's the highest gift. And of course, as lay people, you are encouraged to give. And they talk about giving a monastery. When you give a monastery, you have given everything. This is very interesting to note. You give everything. So, this is something that we can really practice. It's not so difficult, but the benefits are very high. Most people think that when they give, again, this is another myth, they have what we call deprivation. They feel they will be deprived when they give something. Oh, I'll not have enough. Well, of course, you should give with compassion. Yeah? Compassion. Compassion say you give, but you should know the limits also. Wisdom say, okay, yes, this is my limit. I understand that. But most people don't give because of the sense of deprivation. They think they will be deprived. But what I found out from the truth itself, is when you give, it has a boomerang effect. You always get. Either you get happiness, and sometimes you get real stuff that maybe not the same thing that you've given, but sometimes things seem to come back. What goes around comes back, So, and this is very important. Whenever you give, you feel a lot of happiness, right? That actually you have helped other people. You have helped Buddha's teaching, and that brings a lot of satisfaction. Now, there is a tendency of people to give in this manner. When they have something to give, usually mostly in the West, people just throw like this. Yeah, please help yourself. But Buddhists don't have a self. So I tell people, when people say help yourself, I say Buddhism, there's no self. So it's a self-service. I said non-self-service. So that's what's throwing things to people. I saw somebody throwing an apple to me, right? Yes, so this is the culture. They don't mind. But in Africa and Asia, when you give with your two hands. Why you give with two hands? Total surrender, that you have totally given, right? And in Africa, this is our common practice. And in Asia, it's very common. In fact, in Africa, if you cannot give with two hands, for some reason, you still use one hand to give. This has a deeper implication. Because if you give with one hand, and one hand is behind here, that means, yes, I still want it. Yeah, maybe I will use it next Christmas or Buddhamas. So it happens sometimes when you have a lot of clothes, you haven't been using them for let's say, for the last year. 1 year you haven't used the clothes. And when you are going to give them away, you take them, but halfway the walk, you say, oh, no, I think I'll need it. And then you go back. So I think you should give with respect, with the two hands. It's our common practice in Asia and Africa. I've seen this practice in Asia and in Africa. Actually, it's so beautiful seeing people with the two hands. Yet, of course, we have talked about throwing. I've received things like that. In fact, I've even received another kind of giving. Somebody gives, but they just leave there so that you can find it. So I remember I was teaching in USA, I think 3 years ago, and I was about to go back to Africa, and somebody wanted to give me a chocolate. And usually I leave my shoes outside my door. I found a chocolate placed neatly in my shoes. How about that for giving, especially monk? For me, it has been amazing teaching Buddhism in new countries where there's no Buddhist culture. You get lots of stuff. You get a lot of stuff there. And you have to learn how to let go and how to be forgiving and how to be at peace with these things. Right? This is a very, very common practice. And that brings us to what I call giving and abandoning. Most people give things, but actually what they're doing is abandoning. So there's a difference between giving and abandoning. You know, people, what they do, they give. You not abandon. You abandon things, you know. People think by abandoning things, they are giving. So I tell you an example. I was sitting in an airplane. Flying from Massachusetts to California. And then somewhere in Arizona, I boarded a plane, exchanged to another plane, and I was sitting next to an African American. So all the time he was eating apples. I was sitting next to him, and the time is around 4 p.m. actually. And he was eating, and once he was full, he looked at me. Do you want this apple? I say, because I know about generosity, I say, wow, this person is giving because he doesn't like. So giving because you don't like something is not real giving. It's abandoning. Right? So now, I told him, of course, I'm okay because I don't eat after 12. But I've seen this practice mostly in the United States. When I give something, because sometimes people give me dark chocolate and I don't eat dark chocolate, then I take it to the monastery. And sometimes I give monks, and I give also lay people there. When I give it to people, they say, you mean you don't like it? I said, no, what do you mean I don't like it? I like it. So I don't give things because I don't like them. It's because I like the things. So giving things because there's no space, because you don't like them, is abandoning. It's not giving. So we should understand these differences. Now, we should, of course, give things out of generosity. We should give things out of loving kindness and compassion. We should give things out of wisdom. We should give things out of courage. We shouldn't give things out of greed because you want to have reputation, get fame and honor. We should give things really out of really the heart really of generosity. It's really a heart. It's not about the things you give. It's about actually the mental state. Because I've seen many rich people, but they don't give. And I've seen very, very poor people really giving. That even brings me to a very beautiful saying in the African tradition. It says that there's nobody who's too poor not to give, and there's nobody who's too rich not to receive. This is very important. This is an African proverb, Japadora in Uganda. This is very, very important because most of the time, I've seen people stopping me to give my books because they know that this person is rich. One time I was going to Japan to the World Buddhist Summit, and I was arranging books to give to the president of the World Buddhist Summit. So I was traveling with 4 people. I started giving them books, each of them to present to the president of the World Buddhist Summit. One of them said, no, don't give the president of the World Buddhist Summit. Don't give him a book. I said, why? He's very rich. So you see, people think that when people are rich, they shouldn't receive. No. There's nobody who's too poor not to give, and there's nobody who's too rich not to receive. So, in fact, in giving, also we are receiving. So giving is a two-way circuit. When you give, you receive, and when you receive, you give. Okay, for instance, you're giving something. I'm receiving it. But also I'm giving. What am I giving? I'm giving you the opportunity to give. Yes. In fact, that's very kind. Many times when I give something and people say, no, more, you monk, you don't have anything, you should take back, I feel terrible about it. You are depriving me of the opportunity to give. It's really a big opportunity. One time I was in Washington, D.C., there's a Sri Lankan monk in Washington, Buddhist. So he gave me something. I think he gave me food and all these things. I thanked him very much. I said, Venerable, thank you very, very much. He said, please, you have offended me so much. I am the one to thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give. Really, when you look at it, because giving for us, it's connected to acquiring merit. And another word for merit is happiness. So when people give you the opportunity to give, they're giving, actually, you are giving them an opportunity to cultivate happiness, to cultivate merits, to cultivate punya. But of course, for me, I always tell people to cultivate punya with kusala, which is the quality control, so that they can accelerate their path to liberation. Right? This is very, very important. Now, so much has been talked about generosity, but I want to emphasize we should not give out of peer pressure. Why are you giving? Oh, because my friend is giving. No, you should give out of wisdom. You should give out of wisdom. So let's go to the benefits. There's a discourse which is called Siha. It's in Anguttara Nikaya. The Buddha talks about the 4 kinds of benefits that are here now. And this is the talk for today about the benefits that you gain here and now. They are very common benefits, but they bear discussion. This is a discourse to Siha, who was a Brahmin. No, sorry, who was a Jain. Jainism, this is a religion. Jainism. How to drink like this. I don't know how to turn this, but it's okay. Thank you very much who gave me water. Water's life. Now, Siha was a Jain and came to the Buddha, wanted to know about the benefits of giving gifts. So, the Buddha told him there are 5 benefits, and 4 of them pertains to this present life, and 1 of them pertain to the future lives. So the first benefit here is, one is dear and agreeable to many people. So when you give, it brings friendship with other people. People like you because you are giving. You get many friends. And in fact, it's amazing. At the Uganda Buddhist Center, when I started the Uganda Buddhist Center, many people hated me. Can you imagine hating a monk? It's terrible, actually. So people hated me. I'm introducing Buddhism. It's a new religion. I'm telling you, it took me a while. And then I started working on a project, water project. And we actually dug a borehole. And many people start coming to Uganda Buddhist Center to fetch water. And they would go not wanting to look at the temple, but they just walk straight to the water. They don't want even to look at me. And they got water. 1 year. And I'm telling you, it's amazing how we created friendship. The more they got water from the Uganda Buddhist temple, the more actually they start coming closer, until they really came close to the temple. And then one time we had Visak Day. And then we've cooked food and we invited the school and the parents. They were so happy. They start liking us. I've seen the evolution of Uganda Buddhist Center. It was really based on our practice in generosity, of course, and compassion. Now, where we are, we have now like 6 novices. The parents gave the novices, please you take those novices, those young boys, and ordain them as novices. I hope they can give them permanently. But now it's on temporary basis. So it really, actually, we practice generosity in action at Uganda Buddhist Center by giving clean water to people. We give scholarships to students. We give women empowerment programs so that they can make some beads and they sell them and get money. So this generosity at Uganda Buddhist Center is very, very important for us if we are to survive, because I've seen when we give, people give back. I remember I was giving this child a scholarship to go to school. It was very poor. She's from a poor family. It's amazing. The next day, she brought a bunch of bananas and gave me bananas. And after that, she made some handcraft and she brought it to me. So I've seen the boomerang effect of generosity. It's very, very important. So this is very clear. This benefit, you become dear and agreeable to many people. So that's happening at Uganda Buddhist Center. So the second benefit, good people resort to the donor. In other words, people are very good, very virtuous. They come to you and associate with you. So that also happened at Uganda Buddhist Center. There's a Christian father. I always invite him when we have occasions to give talks, and then we give him food, we associate with him, and he say, wow, you Buddhists, you are very generous. And now he's very close to me. He always associate with me. I've seen this happening in our Buddhist temple in Uganda. So the third benefit is one acquires good reputation. So, of course, when we give, that shouldn't be our aim to gain a good reputation, but we should really aim for achieving final liberation. But, of course, this is a bonus of having good reputation, right? This is very, very important. And then the fourth one is whatever assembly a generous giver approaches, he approaches it or she approaches it with confidence and composure. Somebody will be composed. That means will be knowledgeable and joyous according to the discourse, and also will be confident that actually what I'm doing is very good. So these are the 4 benefits. They look so mundane, but this is a siha from Jainism. It's a religion. And then he said, oh, these benefits I know already. I know this is what I get from, you don't need even prior to teach me this, because that's what I'm getting. He nodded in approval that actually, even in the Jain tradition, he's practicing this and is getting these benefits right here and now. So the Buddha then went to the 5th benefit, which pertains to the future, what you get in future. The Buddha said, with the breakup of the body, after death, a generous giver is reborn in a good destination, in a very good destination in heavenly world. That's where she has said, I didn't know that. You mean that when you give, you are born in heavenly world? And of course, this is a Buddhist teaching on rebirth. Actually, the real word is rebecoming. That means somebody who has been generous, when they don't attain nibbana, final liberation, at least they go in heavenly world. But of course, as a Buddhist, you should not only aim at going to heavenly world, because it's also impermanent. You have to go with the two-way ticket, round-trip ticket, right? So you go there, you still have to come back. So we need to practice generosity as a basis and support for the practice of sila. The basis and support for the practice of samadhi, concentration, wisdom, mental development. Then we can attain enlightenment. So these are the 5 benefits that the Buddha gave in this discourse in Anguttara Nikaya. But I would like to extend these benefits to loving kindness practice, because when we give, that means we are very generous. That means also we have loving kindness. Can you give when you don't have loving kindness? You wish people to suffer. Yes, I wish you to suffer forever. And then you give? No, you don't give. So since generosity has a precursor, the precursor to generosity is loving kindness and compassion. That means all the benefits of the practice of generosity can apply to all the benefits of the practice of loving kindness can apply to the practice of generosity. Are you with me? Definitely. Thank you. You see, this is a very generous person. So you get all the benefits. So now, there are 11 benefits of loving kindness. Some of them are already mentioned in these 5. You know the 11? That when the 11th is when you don't attain enlightenment, you will be reborn in a Brahma world. It's so similar here too, isn't it? And also the benefit of being dear to many people. According to the 11 benefits of practicing metta, you become you are loved by human beings, by non-human beings, by even devas. So I can say that, I can even safely say that these are also benefits of being generous. Even I can talk about the benefits of sleeping well. Those are the benefits of practicing metta. Sleeping well, you wake up very well, you have good dreams. That also could be the benefit of practicing generosity. Other benefits of practicing loving kindness is actually you are protected from weapons. You are protected from fire. You are protected from what? Poison, fire, and what else? Weapons, fire, and poison. But this is a figurative speech. In this case, this is a figurative speech. Because when you practice generosity or loving kindness and say, hey, please shoot me. No. No. Most people take things too literally. Yes, you can burn this house. I'm here. I've been practicing metta and generosity. No. I've seen people who read this sutta and they take it too literal. Actually, this is a figurative speech. What are the poisons? The 3 poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. So when you practice generosity, you are protected from the fire, from the poison, from the weapon of greed. Right? We can safely extend that benefit to generosity also. And also gaining concentration easily. When you practice generosity, you gain concentration easily. How? When you give a gift, don't just forget about it. Maybe you give me a chocolate. Don't forget about it. When you go to meditate, instead of sitting here and breathing and start wrestling with the breath, no, just calm down and say, wow, there's a monk from Uganda, actually. I gave him this chocolate. He must be enjoying it. And then you start, wow. Now in his room enjoying it. I'm telling you, he's going to have energy to give a Dhamma talk tomorrow. And then you actually do what you call Dana Nusati. Dana Anusati means reflecting on your generosity. And then when you reflect on your generosity for 5 minutes before reading meditation proper, breathing in and breathing out, wow, after 5 minutes, you start to feel happiness and all that. And when you breathe, the breath is very smooth and you feel happy, because a happy mind gains concentration easily. That's what the Buddha said. A happy mind gains concentration very easily. So you see how actually the practice of generosity can lead to concentration as a benefit here and now. You don't have to wait until you die. You can meditate easily if you know how to meditate. But again, people are generous, and then they are meditators. They forget about their generous acts. And then when they come to meditate, they learn about anapanasati, breathing in, breathing out, and then they start struggling a lot with their meditation instead of actually reflecting on their meditation. So there are other benefits. Of course, you die. I'm talking about now benefits of metta, but can apply to generosity also. You die peacefully. You know, most people, when they die struggling, holding on to their property, holding on to their beloved ones, holding on to their everything, attachment. People really struggle a lot because they're holding on tightly. But when you've been generous, you let go. You let go also life. Right? You are now ready to go. Pack up your stuff. Go. Go and upgrade existence. Me, I call it upgrading existence. Yeah, like from window what? Window 10, you go to window... It's upgrading. I mean, if you've been doing good stuff, you've been generous and been kind, you've been generous, and, I mean, you have a better destination. Isn't it? Definitely. You'll have a better destination if you've been generous, if you've been very kind. Because when you're generous, that's loving kindness in action. That's loving kindness in action. So, of course... when you don't attain final enlightenment, you are going to be born in heavenly world, and then you continue practice and come back to human world after your karma has expired, and then you get practice again. You won't forget, of course, and then you attain liberation. May you attain liberation through the practice of generosity. Thank you very much. Yes.
Bhante, any questions and answers?
Thank you, Bhante, for the interesting and humorous talk. One quick comment on chocolate and one question on abandoning. So if I give you a chocolate and then contemplate on you eating and enjoying it, I'm encouraging desire, craving, so that's not very good. That's just a comment. Okay, my question on abandoning.
Yeah, let me answer that one first.
No, it's not my question.
It's not related?
It's not a question, it's just a comment.
Okay. So you can comment later on. Okay, don't worry, stay with it. So now monks, when we reflect, when you give food to monk, we reflect, I'm eating not for intoxication, not for beautification, but not for enjoyment, not for sports, but I eat this food for supporting my brahmacharya life. So don't worry about that I'm enjoying, you're encouraging greed. But it's going to help you. It's going to help you saying, this monk is happy. Thank you very much. Another comment.
Okay, no, now it's a question, no more comment. See, your point about abandoning is not giving, which is technically correct, but it's not 100% correct because, for example, if I have got clothes that can still be used, but I want to throw it away, and then versus having to give it to somebody who can benefit it and use it, instead of being naked, he's clothed. So there's some partial giving there, so there's still some benefit even to things you don't want and give away. It's not totally in vain. So do you agree with that or not?
No, it's not totally in vain. What I'm saying, you can take those things with a thought. Before giving, you have to think, I'm giving this to eradicate suffering from others. So then you can put them there before taking them there, during taking them, and when you put them there. But what I'm talking about abandoning is people thinking that by leaving things there, people will just take it without any thoughts. In Buddhism, motivation is very important. Remember, we are not giving for the sake of giving. I talked about before giving, you have to think. Volition, we call it volition. Chetana. We have to think. It has to be thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion, thoughts of mindfulness. With mindfulness, with wisdom and understanding. Yes, you see, action can be the same, but the mind state is different. I can just do like this. The poor people will pick whenever they want it. But the same action, Before giving, I should be mindful. Okay, may this action of generosity lead to people may be free from suffering. Then when I'm taking, I'm not having a thought, oh, should I take it back or not? Then when I'm taking it, I take it with the thought, oh, this cloth, they are going to help people in poor African countries and all these things to be free from suffering. And when I put it there, I'll say, wow, may my act of generosity be a cause and condition for liberation. I put it there. Is it the same? Does that help? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so another question. One more question.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, there is a Tibetan tradition to leave their corpse, dead body on the mountain where they feed the vultures. Mm-hmm. Are these practice of generosity to animals?
Yes, very generous. According to Buddha, when somebody die, is become what called karingram. Karingram is a piece of a log, log tree. So Buddha Gosa talks about when you die, three things go out. One is heat, another one consciousness, another one's jivitindriya, in other words, life incense. When that goes out of the body, it really actually, you are just a body. They are really as the same as what the Buddha talk about, the piece of a log. Now, when they bury you, in African tradition, we always bury people. They bury you, they can embalm you, of course, and that means no maggot is going to get benefits, and you stay there forever and dry into pieces, and then you go back to soil. Or that's another way, but embalming, you stay there forever probably. But I think according to this sky burial, I was in Tibet myself, and I went very close to it. That's their practice, to give it to the vultures, and they enjoy, and they can. I think that's part of generosity. But I see people also mostly they give their bodies to medical students. And I was in Sri Lanka for 5 years, and I went to this exhibition whereby they didn't have enough bodies for the student to study, so they exhibited all the dead bodies, they are cutting and all the things. And then, for me, I found out the people who actually donate their body to the medical school, they're very generous. So I would say that's part of generosity. Definitely, I would say that. However, it has a cultural context, of course. Some people want things to be like that. Other people want to be cremated and ash, and then their relative can remember. So this is a cultural part of it, but for me, I can say a strand of generosity to living beings. But it doesn't have to be a sky burial. If the body is also buried in the African tradition without embalming, then also the maggots eat. And that's also being generous to the maggots. Okay, thank you very much for your question. What was your thought?
Yeah.
Is it not generous?
No, I thought it was.
Okay, praise.
Okay, Bhante, there's also another question.
Right.
Now, when we give, if the thought is acquiring merits, then isn't it a clinging or attachment to merits by itself?
Okay, as I said myself, actually, when I mentioned about the word merit, punya, I mentioned that it has to have what called quality control. Quality control, and I put the word kusala. Kusala is skillful states of mind. That means you not only give to gain merit, but also you give to actually cultivate wisdom, compassion, loving kindness, generosity, so that becomes a cause and a condition for attaining liberation. So in other words, just giving, okay, may I get merit, 10% merit, 20% merit. Wow, I'm full of merits. 100% merit. I should not even do more. I've got enough merits. No. I told you the motivation for giving. I mentioned it. Motivation of giving is not only gaining merit. Gaining merit is a bonus. And that's good to have such a motivation. But I say that's a means. That's a means. That's not the end. So we should actually go further to give things with a motivation. May I overcome greed. May my generous act be a cause and a condition, a basis and a support for attaining final liberation. Then you have purified your generosity. Then your generosity has what I call quality control. Are we together?
Not quite yet.
No. What I'm saying, when you are giving, just of course to gain merits, then you are attaching to your merits, your reputation, your merits. That's what I say, you shouldn't do that, just for the sake of merits. But I say yes, give with understanding that giving brings merits, because that's the wrong view. Think that when you give, you don't get merits. Already that's the wrong view. So giving that, okay, whatever you give brings merit is the right view, but as you are giving, you should not stop there. You actually go further, and this going further, I talked about motivation for giving. It should be a pure motivation, based on generosity, not greed, based on loving kindness and compassion, not hatred, based on understanding, not delusion and ignorance, based on courage, not fear. I mentioned those parts, and I told you don't give because out of peer pressure, because another person is giving. Don't give out of greed because you need to get more merits. I mentioned that, but it was maybe lightly mentioned. So definitely, you give with the understanding that giving brings results, which is merit, but also understand that this is a basis and support. If you remember, from the very beginning of my talk about that giving in Buddhism is very special. We give because of basis and support for the practice of ethical conduct. We give as a basis and support for the practice of concentration. We give as a generosity as a basis and support. Remember those two words, basis and support for the practice of wisdom. I mentioned that one. So now, that's the proper way of going about with any teaching of the Buddha. And today I talked about generosity. Are we together?
Yeah, so the merits part should come as a bonus.
Definitely, you got it.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
got it.
Thank you.
You see the signs when you are traveling from Malaysia to Singapore, and you see the sign to the downtown, which is like 10 kilometers. You don't sit at the sign. Yes, I've arrived at Singapore. But this is not a good example, because Singapore is the same as a country, it's the same as a city. It's not a good example. Okay, you are traveling. I don't know the cities in Singapore. Okay, you are in Johor Bahru and you are going to KL, and you are about to reach KL, and then you say sign 10 kilometers to KL, which is a signpost and showing the arrow. And you sit on the sign. Yes, I've arrived. And you start attaching to the sign, right? Have you arrived in Singapore? I mean, in KL? No. It's a sign that going to KL, right? So bonus is a sign that you're on the right track. So you should keep on continuing. That reminds me of a very, very good caption, Ajahn Brahm. There's end of suffering. There's a sign called end of suffering, and somebody was holding on to it. I give you that for your reflection. Don't cling on to merits. Thank you very much. That's the end.
Thank you, Bhante.
The end of the questions. Okay?
Thank you very much. Let's say sadhu 3 times again to Bhante.
Yes.